Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And I actually did get a viewer request for the sequel to the film I'm about to do, but I'm going to do this one first just because there's only two movies in this series. So today's film is the 1985 movie King Solomon's Mines. Here is your trivia question for today. What famous composer is Colonel Bachner obsessed with? The answer will be at the end of this video. So at the beginning of our film, we meet Jessie Houston, who is in search of her missing father, so she hires on our hero, Alan Quartermain. The two of them travel to a city where there is some information about the whereabouts of her father. It's also here in this city that we meet our two main villains, Colonel Bachner and Dogati. Now, these two villains are working together as they are trying to find the location of King Solomon's mines. The way that they're going about getting this information is they are actually the ones in possession of Jesse's father, Professor Houston, who apparently knows the location of the mines. Alan and Jesse are able to free her father, but now it's a race to who can get to the mines first. Along the way on their journey, our heroes run into many things, including a cannibal tribe that tries to eat them in a stew, another tribe that lives upside down in the jungles. They run into multiple traps, and many other dangers like lions, alligators, giant spiders, and a creepy old priestess. So, will it be the heroes or the villains that manage to get to King Solomon's mines first? This movie was directed by J. Lee Thompson. Apparently, Toby Hooper was a possibility as the director. The movie is, of course, based off of the 1885 novel of the same name. What's interesting is this movie actually came out exactly 100 years after the book was written. In the original novel, the story takes place in the 1880s, but in the movie, they decided to move it up to World War I. It has been admitted that this movie was made specifically to cash in on the popularity of the Indiana Jones movies, which so far it had two come out. Also, when speaking about Indiana Jones, we can't forget to talk about the fact that John Rhys Davis was in both that series and this one. I think what I find the most amusing about this is that it really almost feels like he's playing the same character, but this time around they were like, all right, but what if Salo was evil? In the original book series, Alan Quartermain is actually British. Now, Richard Chamberlain does not play him that way in this film, but I still think he did a very good job. Another actor that was also up for the role of Alan Quartermain was John Hurt. The character of Jessie Houston in this movie was played by Sharon Stone. Apparently, other actresses up for that role were Julie Walters and Lucinda Dickey. Also, when talking about the casting of Jessie Houston, there is a funny story that may or may not be true about producer Menahem Golan. Apparently, he really wanted Kathleen Turner to play the role, as she had recently played a similar character in Romancing the Stone. He told the casting director, I want that Stone woman. There was some confusion, so they instead brought in Sharon Stone. Now, Stone was hired, and that's mainly due to the fact that once the confusion was realized, they did actually reach out to Turner, but she turned it down as she felt it was too similar to her previous character. Sharon Stone, by the way, was apparently extremely difficult to work with. So much so that some of the crew actually got so irritated with her that they urinated in her bathtub in her trailer. The sequel to this film, Alan Quartermain and the Lost City of Gold, was actually shot at the exact same time as this film. Both films were shot in Zimbabwe. So when it comes to the film King Solomon's Mines, I do find the movie slightly entertaining. It's obviously an Indiana Jones knockoff, but there are some parts of it that are still fun to watch. I will say the saving grace for the movie is the acting ability of Richard Chamberlain, John Rhys Davis, and Herbert Lom. But everyone else, including Sharon Stone, is pretty bad in this movie. So I think I'm going to have to give this one a 2 out of 5. Now, if you really can't get enough of this film or the character Alan Quartermain, you've got lots of options. There's, of course, the sequel to this film, Alan Quartermain and the Lost City of Gold. There are also multiple iterations of King Solomon's Mines, including a film from 1919, 1937, 1950, and an animated movie in 1986. There was also a 2004 miniseries, and of course, we can't forget the original novels themselves, which there are multiple of them. There are also lots of comic books, including him being part of a superhero team called the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which even got its own movie at one point, with Sean Connery playing Alan Quartermain. In fact, the character of Alan Quartermain shows up in quite a few other movies. So many that I'm just going to leave it as is, and if you want to, feel free to spend the time finding them all. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, what famous composer is Colonel Bachner obsessed with? So he is obsessed with the composer Richard Wagner, and he continually plays the song Ride of the Valkyries created by Wagner throughout the film. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there is a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.